Awesome, thank you. I'm going to see if I can share my slides here. Okay, cool. This looks pretty good. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming in today. We'll give it just a couple more minutes to make sure we have everyone in. Hi, everyone. Thanks again for joining the conversation today. We know everyone's coming from other sessions, so we'll give it just a minute more or so before we get started with our conversation. All right. So it looks like it's just about two after. Let's see if I can. We'll give it maybe one more moment to let everyone finish coming into the session, and then we'll get started talking about creative technologies. Sorry, creating community in creative spaces. Okay. Well, just to be respectful of everyone's time, and we know we want to get to a lot of the sessions today, let's go ahead and get started with our conversation today. Um, my name is Erica Irvin, and I am the Technology and Media Production Specialist for the Shapiro Design Lab at Library. I work in the Ann Arbor campus centrally, and on the first floor of our undergraduate library, the Shapiro Library, we have the spaces, and it is a selection of different types of spaces that make up our design lab, our maker space, our media production rooms, and our open classroom space. Today we really want to talk about how we go about creating community in this space and in all of our creative spaces. So let's just jump right in. Oh, hold on. Now it doesn't want to go to the next slide because it wants to be difficult, and that's just the way technology is. One moment. Okay, we'll just do it this way because it's going to be difficult, and that's okay. Okay, so today let's talk about what community looks like in our spaces, any barriers that may be real or perceived in the creation of that community, assimilation that we may have intentionally or unintentionally that we expect in our spaces, and how we go about maybe intentionally forming some communities. Um, so I want to just get us started with opening this up as a conversation, and I really want to make sure we all get a chance to participate. But we'll have you use the go ahead and unmute yourself as you see fit, and tell us a little bit about what community looks like in your creative space, or what you'd like to see a community look like in your space. Or feel free to use the raise hand function if that's a little bit easier.
Hey, Erica, this is David. Since no one else is, maybe others are raising their hand. Also, just like in our neighborhood, our demographic, I mean, generally it's high school and elementary and adults, but that's the issue. How do we bring, there's a whole lot of others, the underserved, maybe more Spanish speaking who like their parents, or maybe they can't get to our location, but we don't know about it because we haven't reached them yet, or senior citizens as well. So like that's the problem. There's a whole untapped community that we're hoping to reach.
Yeah, and it's a good thing to think about those people who we see in the space regularly, yes, but who are those untapped people that we should really be reaching out to? Yeah, something to think about. Um, does anyone else want to talk about the community that they see in their spaces?
I'll say I feel like we have students at the college that are intimidated by our space because it has walls. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but I wish we were in a more open space where it'd be more accessible and welcoming.
Yeah, walls do create an actual physical barrier, and they make it seem like if you don't know what this space is, you shouldn't be here. But we know that's not the case, and it's definitely tricky to get around that, um, especially for those of us who have these very not brick walled classic library spaces that may not have the glass walls and the more of the showcase space. That's interesting. Anyone else?
I think that we have a similar situation at our space. I didn't catch the name of the person who just shared. I'm sorry. We don't have like we have, I guess you could maybe call them permeable walls. All of the walls of our space are glass. So we don't have walls that like feel like they're keeping people out. But we do have the issue of people feeling like you need special permission to use our resources or use our space. So, for example, when students walk in, when I'm there, at least I always say hi to everybody that walks in to be friendly and welcoming. And then students always ask, am I allowed to use the computers? Where in other spaces, they just sit down at a computer. And it's the same thing with our like equipment and stuff too. It takes a while for them to like realize that they are just part of our community because they are part of our university community. There's no special requirements.
Yeah, that's an interesting predicament as well. Once you get into that, yes, these things are here and to share with everyone, but there are a lot of places where on campuses or in communities or libraries where they actually aren't for everyone. So if there's not kind of baked in knowledge or very clear signage, people feel like they have to ask permission or, yeah, it's just not for them because they don't know about it. Good, good. Um, Before I jump in with my thoughts on community, I want to give a few more moments for people to share.
I can jump in. Hey, Erica. I think for me, when I hear the word community, I actually think of, for our makerspace, I think of, we kind of have like a cult following, which I know the word cult has a negative connotation, but it's like, I feel like every semester we get like the same, you start to see the same students, and it's fun when you see one and then they bring a friend and then they maybe bring a whole group of friends, and they just are coming back all the time throughout the semester. And then it sort of changes. Then the next semester starts and you have the same process happening, but with a different group of students. So I think for us, the community that has developed sort of organically is what has been the most successful. It seems like no matter what like programs we do or like groups we try to reach out to, it's really just, it starts with like that one student who comes in and feels safe and at home in your space, and then kind of brings in their community. I feel like that tends to be more successful for us.
Yeah, completely, completely. That actually is very similar to how I see the community happening and forming in our spaces. It is very organic. We have a lot of interest early in the academic year when we're bringing in students with welcoming events and whatnot. And maybe one or two of those students will be return users, and they eventually bring their friends or their student organizations, and they come back over and over, and we kind of end up with this really organic community versus one that we may want to or try to be fostering a creation around, which is really great that the students want that. Also, Sarah put in the chat that the students also confuse us with closed access spaces where you have to be in a certain major or certain classes. And that definitely is something that I know a lot of people probably are running into as well. Okay, this is great. I love it. Let's go ahead and jump into a Jamboard activity. So I wanted us to take a few minutes to add our thoughts on what barriers there might be, the things that we've already spoken about or things that you have seen or might be on your mind, where there might be issues with students, our community users, our faculty or staff even, feeling like they belong in our spaces. So there's a QR code here. I'm going to grab this link and pop it in the chat as well. Oh no. Let's see. So on the back end, would you be able to share that link in the chat? I'm having a little bit of an issue getting to popping it in there. But we want to make sure everybody gets a moment to get over to the first page of that Jamboard with what barriers our spaces have to creating a feeling of community, belonging, and even inclusiveness in these spaces.
Yeah, I was going to say, could you put it back on the screen? Because I'll just type it in.
Okay.
So, Yeah, our hosting computer suddenly crashed, so I just jumped over to
Oh
join y'all. So sorry about that.
no! You know technology is going to do that always.
Exactly. Thanks, Jamie.
Oh yes, thank you. And as you're going through, feel free to maybe plus one other people's ideas if you're having the same things, you're thinking about the same things, or restate it in a way that maybe fits your space a little bit better.
But I'm afraid, yeah, it does look like that it is view only for everybody else.
Let's see, do we have access to it now to edit? It looks like we do. Perfect, great. Awesome. I'm seeing some great ideas coming up already. Um, let's go ahead and give it one more minute for people to share, and then let's really have a discussion about some of the things that are there. Okay, so I'm seeing some really good stuff in the Jamboard. Is there anything that people wanted to bring up to this discussion to have us have a little bit more talk around in our conversation? There are a couple that jump out to me, but I want to make sure we give everyone a chance to speak, so I'm going to hold back. Okay, well then let me go ahead and get started. Um, and I think the one that really kind of immediately caught me was when groups of students feel comfortable in a space, it can exclude new people from feeling like they can join. And that kind of goes back to the thoughts of community creating organically in the space, which was what we love, which was what we want to see. We want people to come in and share their ideas and be enthusiastic about it. But it can make those who aren't already a part of that group, that in crowd, feel like they don't know where to join in. And so that definitely creates kind of a sense of not feeling included. And it can make you feel like, well, yeah, I can come in and use these things, but I'm actually not celebrated for being in this space, which is really what we want, I think, our users to feel. Anything else? Yeah, I think another one that is kind of something that we see a lot in our spaces, and I'm sure a lot of us do as well, is due to a lack of space. Like we don't have the physical space to have users come in and connect with one another, to socialize. A lot of being in these spaces is sitting down and being able to work on projects. But if you don't have that space, it can be really tricky. Particularly in our space, we're a very small footprint inside of 4 brick walls. We got glass doors, but that's all we have. And so the seats are there. It's always a struggle for like, how do we get more seats? How do we rearrange to get more seats? Because without having that place to sit, people aren't really going to feel like they can share their ideas. They can learn from one another. Or they feel like it's just like a space that maybe people shouldn't be in general. You just come in and use the equipment. And I know that's the one thing we definitely don't want. We want to be a service and not just equipment, but sometimes that is part of it as well. So yeah, I think that lack of space is really tricky. Okay, well,
It's going to chime in on lack of
Mhm.
space too, because that's my biggest challenge because my space is really, really small. Like if there's 5 or 6 students in there, that's pretty much it that can fit and like work comfortably. And it's sort of the flip side of, I love when I go to our space and there's a group of students and they maybe seem like they're friends or they got to know each other in space. I'm like, that's awesome. But then I see another student come in and want to work and there's nowhere for them to go. And it just breaks my heart. Like we've sort of come up against, there's just nowhere, not enough space for everybody. So it's like we're doing our best and we want to encourage more people to join, but we just physically don't have the room. So it's kind of, it's disappointing at times. Oh, good. I'm not the only one. Thanks, Jamie.
we know we are not the only ones. That's why everyone is here, because we are all experiencing the same issues for sure, and the same fantastic things, and that's what we want to share as well. And yeah, of course, there is still going to be the perception, whether it is real or not, that, these are cis white male spaces, and very engineering heavy spaces. I think that is something that luckily we in the Shapiro Library don't have as much of an issue with, because being located far enough from the engineering library that is here, and the engineering spaces, which have their own makerspace fabrication studios. But we still do have that perception based on the equipment that's here. And it's hard to get around that for sure. Okay, thank you guys so much for the participation so far. So let's go back to our slides and take a look at the next one. So, when we think about our spaces and what we are doing in our spaces, and what projects we're bringing in and pushing through and publicizing, do we ask our users to kind of assimilate to a certain culture in the space? Do we make assumptions about our users who are coming in and what they might be doing? Are we sure that our users who are coming in from various backgrounds and whatnot are feeling like they're comfortable? Can they actually be their authentic self in these spaces and share their ideas, whatever they may be, and get feedback on it. And are those ideas and that self celebrated and appreciated? Um, it's tricky to make sure we're doing that. Oh, I'm not sharing the slides. Oh gosh, thank you guys so much. I'm so sorry about that. Let me go ahead and do that again. Yes, thank you. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that we are being honest with ourselves as owners of these spaces and think about what we're asking our users to do. So let's talk about it. Do we make assumptions about our users who are coming into our spaces? I know that I do. I assume them to be from at least the university because that is where we're centrally located. Now, does that have a lot of assumption in it? Yes, it does. About educational background, about economics ability to a degree, and about enthusiasm for being in a makerspace or creative space of a type. Should I be bringing those assumptions? Absolutely not. But do they help us to kind of guide the way that we are doing our work? Yes. So some things are necessary, but what assumptions are we making about our users? Anyone else want to chime in? Okay. Is there any work that we do or any projects that we may have that we share with others, with our users, or in a more public format to make sure our people are comfortable coming into our spaces? Or do we ask anything of ourselves or our student staff to make sure our users are comfortable?
Erica, maybe going back to the first question you asked, it's still related though. Um, I think as a manager of a space, sometimes you just assume, maybe because so many students do come in and know what they have to do, or they're part of a project team, that you just assume people come in and sort of know what to do, or they're going to sit down and start something, but they don't, and they kind of stare, look around, and then walk out. And then making them feel comfortable. I've heard this about other venues, whether it's churches or groups that are meeting. If no one goes up to them and says hello and welcomes them, it's highly unlikely that person will return, just to make a personal connection. But I know I fail all the time to get that to happen. It's hard. You have to really pay attention.
It's extremely hard, and it's really hard for us to pay attention and to do all of that while also doing all of the other things that we are responsible for as well, for sure. That's a really good point, David. Yeah, I think that it's something that I ask my student staff to do regularly. Is anyone who comes and hangs out near those glass doors, make sure they say hello. Make sure they ask, "Hey, can I help you out with something?" Because most of the time, that answer is going to be, "No, I'm looking for someone," or "No, I'm just looking around." But sometimes that looking around can be, "I'm just trying to see what you guys are doing in here in these spaces," or "I think I'm looking for the right space, but I could be wrong." So, I think that's important, is the saying hello for sure. All right. And they still don't come back. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Like I had a an escape room, mini escape room for Welcome Back Days the first week of the semester. And the students were super engaged by it. And I had them come back to finish the adventure. And then those students mostly did not use the facilities again for the rest of the semester, which is so sad.
That is always hard. And it's like, yeah, you are super excited about this. We can't wait to see you again. then you never see them again. Oh, yeah. Does anybody else want to share?
I'd like to know a little bit more about that escape room at some point, but I wanted to say with my staff, we will greet people and offer some assistance, and people, like the students, don't want the help, or they're afraid for the help because they think they understand it and they're trying to figure it out on their own. So they, whether it's like they're self-conscious, but I feel like they don't really want the one-on-one at times.
I have seen that a lot as well. And I think we see it for two reasons. In our space, speaking of my space alone, I think the two reasons we see it are we expect all of our students users who are coming in to do a training module. And that training module is on our course management system. We use Canvas, and they go through it and they come in and they feel like they've got it. But it's still the first time you're in those spaces, we know they don't have it. They need a little bit of assistance, just to generally understand the nuances of our specific machinery, because everyone's specific technology is a little different. It always gives us our own particular problems. So yeah, I think that's part of it. And then the other side of that I have noticed is, yeah, I think people are kind of shy to share their ideas, whether they think it's something that should be made in a library, or if they think it's not serious enough, or, and we have seen this as we get some overflow from other areas of campus, they feel like our staff aren't as knowledgeable as they might need to be to help them. And I, thinking about the users who are basically coming from other locations that have spaces, but they can't get into those spaces for one reason or another, mostly because it's the end of the year and they're just too busy. So they come to our spaces and they have some concerns or some trepidations about how knowledgeable the staff might be with the machinery. But if they just ask them or talk to them, I think that is one of those things that can help us to kind of not only make them feel comfortable, but make them feel like, yes, your knowledge is valuable and appreciated, and we want to share our knowledge with you and hope you appreciate it as well. Okay. Any other thoughts? Sarah, go right ahead.
Yeah, so this is sort of related to that, where we sometimes have similar issues with students who like we can't meet their needs. And a lot of times it's not that like it's not that we can't, it's that it's a service that we don't offer. And I think that is because we have faculty members who know about our space, but maybe don't really know what we do. And they will assign students projects that we can't support. So this was, I think, a couple of summers ago, but we had a student who was doing a like research assistant summer position with a faculty member. And I can't even remember what discipline it was in, but the faculty member wanted the student to learn some very specific specialty software for data visualization for the faculty member to use at a presentation, and just the faculty member didn't know how to use it, didn't know how to get it, assumed we would have it. And the student came over and I was like, no, we don't have that. None of us know how to use it. It is expensive, so we probably won't get it for you. And what other options do you have? And also, like, we actually don't help with data visualization specifically. So, but anyways, it's one of those things where it's like, we want to help. We want students to feel comfortable asking for help. That particular student was able to like go back to the professor, find an alternative, and really did have to like teach himself the alternative. Because I think it was open source, but like not one of our software options. And so we couldn't really help. But so many other times that happens, and the students say, oh, okay. And they leave and they don't come back because they think that we can't help them with their other questions because they don't understand that the faculty member asked them for too much or something outside of our scope.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And connected, and not at all cynical, I haven't had a comment that are we trying to promote our space to users that doesn't quite meet their needs, or should we start changing our space to meet user needs? Um, yeah, promoting your space is tricky. And so, yeah, Dana, go ahead and comment. Oh, I think you're muted.
Sorry. One of the most effective things that I've done that I think solves a couple of problems, one being like students have a really high load. And this also is a little bit unique to my position where I am the staff member in Access, but I kind of also do a little bit of the instructional side of things. Where I'll connect with faculty and whatever projects they have that are digital media going on in their classes and have them bring the class into the space for supported time. And the students that I get to come in for those supported times, whether it's just an equipment training or something more intensive, they come back more than any other thing that I've tried. If I can get a class sponsored thing, those students come back. So I don't know if that's helpful. It's just one of the things that I've found that has been pretty effective.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that. Um, yeah, I think that in and connecting to your comment for sure, where you mentioned that some things might be post lockdown social trends. Post lockdown, we are seeing that, if we still continue to do a lot of things hybrid or mostly doing instruction is going to be either online or here's a video added to your course management system. But I we don't necessarily see a lot of people coming in from those sessions. It's when we are able to get the class to actually come over. They may, be on other sites or on their phones for some of that. But the time that they have in the space, seeing the things, if possible, actually being hands-on with what they might want to use for their projects, that has really made an impact and help us to see some return of those people coming back. Yeah, awesome. Thank you guys. All right. Well, I definitely want to keep the conversation going. And I want to move to our next kind of section. So I'm going to share my screen again. And we're going to look at another Jamboard. This time, I really want to have us talk a little bit more about, we know there are the barriers and things that may keep the students away or make them not feel like they want to return. We've talked about that. But have we been thinking about ways that we can get people to feel like they're a community? This place is part of their area of the campus that they belong to, and a space, an academic space that really is inclusive and wants them to be here. So we'll pop back over to that Jamboard. It's going to be page 2. And I want you guys to go ahead and take a few moments to talk about possible ideas for promoting community. Think of your users that are already there, but also think about the users who we're not seeing as much that we really want to bring in. How have we thought about them? What has worked? What have we thought we want to try out to see if there's a way to maybe bring some more belonging to these spaces. Let's give it about 1 more minute or so to get our ideas into the Jamboard, and then we'll talk about it. Okay. Already seeing some really fantastic things that I am like, yes, let's do it. In the space, I'm not going to call anyone out directly, but I do want to kind of pull out some of the things and we can all have a conversation around them. So yeah, let's go ahead and start on some of the ones that I was most easily drawn to. Student staff with different identities, cultures, and backgrounds. Connected to that is seeing faces like theirs using resources or leading a session. Yeah, that can really help with feeling included in a space. Are there any activities or hiring practices or events that people kind of connect to as they're looking for student staff to kind of or yeah, student staff to kind of facilitate events or the spaces that they want to talk about?
I'll add on this question and just around this whole conversation that we're having. I've been thinking a lot about our international student population. So I think one of the assumptions that we make in our space and also just in the libraries more broadly is we kind of tailor our services to our domestic students, but we actually have a huge population of students who are coming from other countries. This semester is the first time that I've had a couple of students on staff who are international students. And it's brought to light all these things that I think assumptions that I was making and just a whole group of students that I wasn't taking into consideration. So that I think has been huge for just making the space more inclusive. And I think having those students physically in the space also sends a message of who is welcome in the space. And yeah, so I think that's made a lot of positive change, and sort of lost my train of thought, but I'll just leave it there.
Yeah, that is interesting. Dana mentioned in the chat that because of their hiring, the student staff is 3/5 international students. And similarly, mine is too. And I'm wondering if that is just due to the kind of the events I PR at early in the term, try to get students to come in and work for us, or also just because of the ongoing community that continues on throughout the years. We've regularly had lots of different users coming in, speaking lots of different languages, which kind of helps to facilitate other users who are international students coming in and feeling comfortable in the space and like they can share themselves in a way that is familiar and natural. And so that really helps. But yeah, that's something to think about for sure. The way we connect with our international student populations. And okay, cool. Anything else people want to bring up? So I want to mention that the free food or coffee, that one really jumped out at me. And we know studies show that food creates community. It's one of those things that is really helpful in making people feel comfortable and like they belong and like they're appreciated. And so we love having events with food. How do people get funding for events with food? That's something I am wondering. Another thing that is really popping out to me right here is kind of the special audience focused or themed events. I don't know if anyone has had those. And if they have, if they'd like to share a little bit more about it.
I'd be curious, has anyone approached maybe businesses to like pay for the pizza if you had an open night and how that went? Not so much, huh?
I think we've done it on a larger library-wide event, but I've never looked into it as like a specific unit event.
Hmm. Hmm.
Is justification for funding food for our events something that anyone has ever tried? I see in the chat, yeah, it happens grand opening, don't have a dedicated budget, so it's not usual. It's one of those things. But does anyone have any thoughts on? Okay, it doesn't look like we do. No one has had a lot of luck getting food. Yeah. Yes, food is so difficult to get funding for, um, which is not great because we know it's one of those things that brings our users in. Everybody will want to come in for some cookies and hot chocolate, especially right now. I'm in Michigan, it's very cold. But yeah, so that sounds like something we should look into, maybe brainstorming ideas about.
I don't have answers, but I do feel like my administration doesn't want to give me money for food because they're like, we already give you money for all these other fun things. Like you shouldn't need money for food. And I'm like, but you got to bring them in with the food. So yeah, similarly, it's like impossible. Like it'd be easier for me to buy another 3D printer than to get like pizza for an event, which seems wild. I don't know.
I'd say the opposite though is like maybe a business could come in and maybe sponsor food or something, but then they would want to know that, well, what do they get out of it? You know, if it's a bunch of professionals, maybe that those people might buy something or spend money with them. But if it's the public or students, not so much, you know, unless it's I don't know what kind of service that could be technically related could offer something that the general population would, you know, could sell to. Maybe a timeshare. I don't know.
Yeah. Kristen mentioned in the chat that they did have a event where they had pizza, but they partnered with a local community partner, and they did all of the kind of handling of the coordination of the food, and that is actually something I had not considered, the possibility of partnering with someone in the community who would want to be able to come in and maybe share their ideas and also their resources a bit in terms of funding pizza, and also the time that goes into kind of the coordination of getting all of our foods and things together. So yeah, that's another thing to consider. Awesome.
And one of we're trying to do is we have both a library maker space and another location in a storefront, but we're fortunate that there's some well, we get a lot of high school students and we have restaurants around, and we just haven't approached it, which is maybe somehow, I don't know, have them sponsor food but give out coupons for that business, kind of drive the high school, especially voracious high school students, to their business maybe a little bit more. It just takes time to form those relationships. So, but that's one idea we have, to maybe get something special that people would show up for.
Yeah, yeah. Forming those relationships. And also I see that one of the ideas was connections with student resource centers, or reaching out to student orgs and clubs that offering them private resources, one-off things, or even events and sessions. That is something that I think we do a little bit of. We definitely work with 3 student organizations who are working out of our space right now, which takes up even more of our footprint. But then they feel like it's kind of a dedicated space for them. And I think those connections have really helped, because what happens is, student orgs they need a lot of things. So they can come to us and use our things, but then they go and tell all their friends and even their faculty, their staff, their professors that they're working with about our spaces. And so we get a lot of connections that way as well. Yeah, has anyone else had any luck connecting specifically with like a student org or an on-campus resource center, to kind of try to bring in more people and have them feel like it is a space that belongs to them? Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, okay. So I started working with the manager, I'm not sure what her title is, for our student radio station this summer, to sort of meet like both of our needs. They don't really have a space of their own for students to record their shows or edit them. Everything is pre-recorded. And we had a lot of students in the past who were coming in and didn't really know how to use, they're required to use Audition, and they didn't really know how to use it. And so it was sort of dominating our staff time, and making it hard for us to meet other students' needs. So the 2 of us worked together to do some workshops, and the idea, at least, was to get the students to feel a sense of community and hang out in our space. And that would help us bring students in who maybe weren't coming in already, and just increase our foot traffic overall, and also help the radio station retain their hosts. And so this is the first semester we've been doing it. It seems like it hasn't quite gone as well as we hoped, but we definitely do have the students coming in to work on their shows. They're just not hanging out the way we wanted to, but I think that's maybe just students maybe don't always want to hang out in the library,
Yeah, that's actually great to hear. We definitely similarly do that. We do a lot of podcast workshops and podcast one-offs with new student orgs or student projects. And initially they want to talk to us and sit in our spaces and a lot. And then, within a few weeks, we see them regularly. We see them all the time, but they don't kind of connect with us as much, which I think is okay, because, you know, it feels like they're getting what they need, but I would love to find a way to have them feel like their project is something that is some we want to display in the space, and we're really excited to share with others about how they do it. Yeah, definitely, definitely. Once they get comfortable with the tools and the skills, they're independent. That's great. Okay. Well, what ways do, that's a fantastic question, Dana. What ways do we display stuff in our spaces, projects that have been coming out of our spaces or using our resources? So for the design lab, we have a blog that's part of the library's blog posting platform, and we have our own blog. And we are lucky enough that for the things that we have in our workshop space, which is our more traditional maker space, we are able to provide all of resources for free, and we ask for students to pay us with a blog post. So that's how we are able to kind of show off the projects that they are doing in that space. And then for anyone that we do any kind of podcasting, intro to podcasting and workshopping with, as they are starting to create their projects, if it's one that is going to actually be public, we ask for them to share it back with us, and then we add it to our LibGuide on podcasting, which has the links for all of the podcasts that have kind of been made in our space and are open to be shared. Does anyone else want to share? I like the idea of the Polaroids. That's a really great idea. We have Polaroids on cabinets in our space as well, but they're just of the misbehaving printers of the week, which I know everyone has. Projectors, that's cool. I like that. We have not thought about the possibility of using the large screens that our library has to project ideas. Projects that are coming out of the space. Great.
I'd be curious if, especially with students and projects, maybe it's student groups doing, or if anyone's had success in sort of posting, maybe it's a student group who wins a certain award or achieves a certain goal, and like posting, pictures and like a congratulations, some notoriety, just on a wall or something, and like how that was received, if it went a long way, and like it was encouraging to do more of it. uh it's something we haven't done, and I feel like maybe we're missing the mark on by not recognizing people. Does anyone have experience in that?
Um, Kind of. So we haven't really started doing it a lot. But our studio manager supervises our student workers, and she's been working for a while now on ways to like display and highlight the work they do as student workers, which it's kind of in a corner, doesn't really get like looked at too much. But she has started looking at ways to share it on our library Instagram. So we have done that when I think we've had student orgs, like I think we've posted stuff for like student orgs that use our space and our equipment, like at least a story like saying, oh, they're doing auditions or whatever it is. But looking at more ways to like promote like the work that can be done by students, as well as events and stuff like that. So we're working on it. We don't have a real display area, and we don't really have a space where we can set that kind of stuff up very easily. But we are working at using our like social media accounts through the library.
Cool, thanks.
Awesome. Okay. We have just a few moments left. So in that time, I wanted to ask if there are any questions or ideas for future consideration that we want to put in the notes to continue our conversation around. Awesome. All right. Well, I know that we will definitely continue having these conversations across the board. So I want to thank everybody for chatting today, for sharing what's going on in their spaces and their ideas. As we continue in these creative spaces and trying to make sure everyone feels like it's a space for them overall. I look forward to connecting with you guys if you're going to be in person next week. And I hope that, yeah, we just keep thinking about these and sharing our ideas about around all of it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Have a good one.
Thank you.